Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Just give us a few more minutes to let some of the other attendees join, and we will get started. In the meantime, you should all see a chat bar to your right, so please do not hesitate to put any questions at all into that chat as we go through the session, and I will do my best to answer them. Hi, everyone. Welcome to those who've just joined. Give us a couple more minutes as we wait for a few more attendees to come in, and then we will get started with the session. Okay, everyone, we are ready to get started. As you should already know, we are here to talk about how to measure and optimize during promotional moments. A very important topic, I'm sure, for all of you on the phone, and something that we here at Double Verify Rockerbox think about a lot. So there's lots to get through. I'm going to get started right away. But obviously, if any of you have any questions as we go along, please don't hesitate to drop them into the chat on the right-hand side, and we can answer them as we go. So would love to keep this conversational as much as possible. Okay. So there's a lot of different components to how to think about media investment when you're in a promotion. Obviously, promotions are extremely high stakes moments. You are giving away quite a lot of margin potentially in order to be able to get extra revenue from your audience. And with that comes a lot of risk. Obviously, if you're giving away margin, then that's in any case a risky proposition. But there's also a lot of reward at stake. So you are in a position to get outsized amounts of revenue impact from that promotion if you manage to plan well and execute well and all the rest. Obviously, all of that comes with a lot of increased scrutiny. So I know that a lot of media teams out there face quite a lot of extra scrutiny when you're in a promotional moment, because people want to see those results. There's a lot riding on some of these big moments. So definitely an important moment for everybody. So we'll go through this presentation in five beats, I guess. So the first one is all about spend increases, media cost inflation, a very, very important topic that we have done a lot of analysis around here at Rockerbox. We'll then look at how this can be filtered through the lens of multi-touch attribution, which is obviously Rockerbox's signature tool, and something that we think is an incredibly powerful way of thinking about and looking at your results from a promotion. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the importance of the strength of a promotion. So we're sort of stepping a little bit outside of advertising and media and thinking about, well, what actually are you offering to your customers? What is the benefit that you're bringing to them, and what are you offering them? Next, we'll talk about incrementality testing, the importance of that and how it can be used, which is very specific when it comes to promotions. And then lastly, a bit of a framework for taking some of this, bringing it all together and putting it into action throughout the year. So we can get started. So as I'm sure you have all experienced, budgets for media during promotional moments rise a lot. So there is typically more willingness to spend on media, probably a lot easier to get budget from the finance department in order to really put a lot of weight behind a promotion. But of course, ad auctions can get very crowded. You know, if one brand is spending a lot more during a promotional moment, then the chances are that other brands are doing so as well. That might not be true if it is a promotion that is very specific to you as a brand. And maybe this is a sale that only you run. It's a moment that you own. But for a lot of brands, they're really piggybacking on bigger moments in culture that customers and users come to expect there to be promotions. So that could be Black Friday, could be a holiday weekend, you name it. And obviously in those moments, there's a lot of activity from a lot of different advertisers. So what does this mean? Well, let's take Black Friday as an example. So on this chart, you can see spend aggregated across a large number of brands that we work with. And you can see here, we're looking at November and December, and there Black Friday, Cyber Monday is extremely clear. You can see that rapid inflation in media spend over time, almost 3 times as much being spent during those days as in a normal day, quote unquote normal day, during October and November. So there's just this really extreme increase in media spend across the board. Obviously, there are lots of brands that don't have anything to do with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and if you're one of those, then this particular moment may not be relevant to you. But I would guess that if you are a brand that has promotional moments, you probably have a spend chart that looks a lot like this. Now, this is all very well, but of course, you have to remember that not all of that spend is going to necessarily have somewhere to go. So we have to think really hard about what happens to the available ad inventory. So let's stick with Black Friday. If on Black Friday, spend is 3 times as high as it would be on a normal day, how much inventory is actually available? Do we have 3 times as much inventory available on those days as we would otherwise? And the answer is quite clearly no. So here are a few different channels. And again, we're looking in aggregate just across all the different data that we have available. So you can see there is a little bit of additional inventory over BFCM versus other days. About 7% more impressions are available. Brand search, a lot more inventory is available, about 84%. But interestingly, non-brand search, it's actually less inventory available than on other days during the same quarter. We'll come back to that. Social, there is more inventory available. And again, not even close to 3 times, but 30%, close to 30% more inventory is still a dramatic amount extra. Now, what's going on here? Well, the first and last bars, display and social, it is possible for some of the publishers and platforms in those spaces to increase the amount of available inventory as demand increases, as demand for media space increases. So think about social. The social platform could increase the number of spots where ads are able to show up in the feeds, and therefore they would have more inventory available to sell. So you're just increasing the rate at which users would be able to see ads in their feeds. Display, similar kind of idea. But search is very different. So search, yes, you could display more ads below the same search terms, but you cannot make people search more. So you cannot make people search for specific sets of branded or non-branded terms more. You're really limited by the user behavior in those situations. And what I want to dig into here a little bit is the difference here between branded search and non-branded search, and whether that can give us any clues about what's going on during these promotional moments. So branded search is a completely unique channel. This is a channel in which, by definition, you must have heard of a brand, you must know about the brand in order to be able to search for them, and therefore in order for those clicks to be available, those ad impressions to be available. So the fact that we have an 84% increase in available inventory for brand search during a promotion than before the promotion suggests to me very clearly that the people who are searching for those brands have kind of already made up their mind. They are looking for a specific product, a specific brand, and they are likely looking for those brands to be on sale because they're searching during a well-known promotional moment. On the other hand, non-branded search, the inventory is actually going down. What does that tell us? It tells me that most consumers are no longer in the consideration phase. They are not looking for a type of product because they already know which brand they are looking to buy from. So there's a lot less discovery, if you like, going on during a promotion, actually during the promotion, than there is much lower funnel kind of demand capture type of activity going on. So let's keep that in mind as the frame of mind of our consumer as we go through the rest of this presentation. So let's add into this, what do we see in terms of the cost increases? So for display, unsurprisingly, not that much more inventory available, and so we're actually seeing very dramatic increases in CPM, about 75% increase in CPM. For brand search, where there is a lot more inventory available, the cost increases, not the spend increases, but the cost increases are a bit more moderate, so about 35% CPM or CPC increase for brand search there. Non-brand, a lot less or a little bit less inventory available. And so we see extremely dramatic cost increases there, almost 90% increase in costs, in media costs for non-branded search during the promo period. And then social, a little bit in between, they do have more inventory available, but still we are getting quite substantial increases in costs there as well. And so that's obviously quite dramatic and tells us a lot, I think, is very revealing about the consumer journey, the fact that people are no longer necessarily in discovery. Most people have made up their minds because that's where we're seeing that increase in media space, in that branded search. And yet it looks like advertisers are still chasing people who are much more in the discovery phase. Even though there are fewer of them around during promotions, brands are still chasing them very, very aggressively and willing to pay a 90% premium on their normal media cost in order to be able to capture arguably fewer people potentially. So very, very interesting. Again, that kind of polar opposites that we're seeing in branded versus non-branded search. Very, very striking there. So what does this kind of situation mean for MTA? Well, remember that during a promo time period or any time period, MTA is going to distribute credit according to the different patterns that it sees and the different touch points that it is able to identify. And it's not necessarily going to change the methodology dramatically whether a conversion happens during a promotional period or outside of a promotional period. But of course, as we've seen, promo periods are very different. the way that consumers act is very different. And so you're going to see different patterns of attribution results during those promo periods versus outside of those promo periods. So likely what you're going to see is a lot of your lower funnel channels really getting a lot of credit, especially if your model credits recency a little bit extra. Then things like brand search, things like retargeting, those are going to get dramatically more credit from your MTA model than they might otherwise. Owned channels, likewise, are likely to get a lot of extra credit because they tend to promote to high intent shoppers. So they're promoting to your existing audience, people who are likely already familiar with the brand. They've gone through the upper funnel moments of getting aware, going through consideration. They've taken the decision to either purchase already or sign up for one of your own channels. So they're receiving email or SMS or following you on social. And so all of those channels, as they push out messaging around your promo, they are going to be gathering quite a lot of credit into MTA, perhaps a lot more than they would at other times of year even. And then look back windows, when we think about the upper funnel channels, the upper funnel channels must have played a role in order to get people down funnel into things like retargeting or brand search or into your own channels. And this is where it's really important to think long and hard about your look back windows and what those should be for those upper funnel channels so that they are calibrated appropriately to make sure that they are capturing a lot of that credit in advance of a promo period. It's also worth noting that incrementality can shift quite dramatically during a promotional period versus outside of a promotional period. Anyone who has access to the Rockerbox MTA may well have seen this firsthand, where the amount of spend that you can put into a channel and the amount of return that you get that is credited in MTA will look completely different during a promo period versus a non-promo period. Likewise, anyone who has done any testing during a promo period versus outside of a promo period for the same channel will notice that the level of incrementality that you're getting for a channel will be very different in and out of a promotional period, especially for things like branded search, retargeting, those lower funnel channels that may just be capturing credit for conversions that would have been driven by the promotion itself and not by the media itself. So a few themes that we've seen thinking about patterns across lots of different channels and advertisers. Display retargeting often shows lift during those promo heavy periods, but not necessarily during BAU, but is very creative dependent. So oftentimes retargeting will show lift when it is promoting a very good promo. But if it is just kind of reminding people of things that they've already decided not to buy, then it's likely to not be very high lift. Social, very, very high incrementality potentially. It varies a lot by brand, but can be very high incrementality throughout the year, both in and outside of promotional periods. Brand search and affiliate, typically low incrementality regardless of the timing. Affiliate, depending on the style of affiliate that you're buying, it can be extremely low incrementality, just kind of grabbing credit for conversions that would have happened anyway, no matter what. And then brand search, very, very similar story. By definition, like I said before, you are typically capturing people who already know about the brand, who've heard about the brand from either another media channel, by word of mouth, from owned, something like that, and who therefore are likely to be converting anyway. And then lastly, email and SMS. Promo-specific sends drive dramatic amounts of conversions. These are very, very powerful channels if used in the right way, but it depends, again, very, very much dependent on the brand. And if you are a brand who sends a lot of email, then it might be that your emails are just not getting paid sufficient attention. But if you're a brand that has a lot of restraint around how you send email and SMS, then that can be very valuable. If you're only pushing those out when you have a big promotion, then those can be extremely valuable way of getting the word out. So I mentioned a little bit that different brands have different experiences, and I wanted to pause on this topic for a little bit. So let's say that we have two different types of buyers, indeed, two completely different types of brands. So here we have, let's call the impulse buyer. So this would be a lower spend type of buyer with a cheaper type of product. And they are moving very, very rapidly from ad exposure to making a quick decision about the purchase. And the important thing here is that you'll see that purchase and decision happen at exactly the same time. So it's a very, very rapid turnaround. And because purchase and decision happen at the same time, it's very easy for us to see all of the ads that went into that because we have that timeline within MTA. So we understand here are the ads that you were exposed to and you made the decision, and we know roughly what drove you into that. But what if this brand or this customer is more someone who waits for a sale or waits for a deal? In that case, the decision to purchase could be anywhere on this journey. So you have a lot of ad exposures, then the person might read some reviews, compare prices. They may subscribe to an email or an SMS. They might check your competitors. They might then decide, well, this is a big ticket item. It's something that costs a lot of money. Let's say it's a piece of furniture or something. And so they decide, I'm going to wait for a sale event. I know that this brand goes on sale. I know that I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to push off my purchase until there's a good deal available. And on this journey, the decision could happen anytime. We don't know that the decision happened at the moment of purchase. In most instances, it did not. In most instances, it will have happened a lot earlier. And so the path to decision and the path to purchase will look slightly different. And those things being different makes the job of measurement much, much harder. So you always have to have that in mind when you are analyzing conversions from a promotion versus analyzing promotions from any other time of year, is that your path to purchase and your path to decision have now become split apart. I would say this is extremely important, even more important for brands selling high ticket price items. So if you are selling something very cheap, a quick everyday purchase that doesn't see heavy purchase cycle behavior when it comes to promo, you're probably okay. But if you're selling much bigger ticket items, furniture, appliances, cars, something like that, then obviously the sale event is very, very important and will likely pull apart that decision and purchase moment in the eyes of the customer. So, as we've said, not every brand experiences promotions the same way, and in the same vein, not every brand experiences search the same way. So you have to think about brand search and non-brand search very differently, especially when it comes to promotional moments. The importance of spending in these channels, even if you're not convinced that they're super incremental, might be very different for you than it would be for other brands. So it's very dangerous to rely on industry benchmarks for some of this work. It's very important to test for yourself. If no competitors bid on your terms, importantly, your organic results can be very powerful, and they can help you capture a lot of latent demand for your brand for free. So if you are in a promotional moment and you see a lot of demand coming through brand search, those are likely shoppers that, absent any brand search term, paid search term, will click on your organic links, and you'll be able to absorb that demand that way, and you won't have to worry about it. However, if you have competitors bidding on your terms and they have very attractive offers, then obviously relinquishing that space, that ad space to them, is a bit dangerous. You're really allowing them to get a foot in the door and steal your customers from you. So again, every brand is different and worth keeping that in mind as you plan for your promos. Non-brand search, as we saw, tends to be the case that the demand for non-brand search comes down actually, or sorry, not the demand for the media space, but the inventory available comes down during promos. And so you have to be aware of that, because most of your customers are likely to be through that consideration and discovery phase. They're more likely to be already bottom funnel. So if you're bidding too strongly on non-brand search, then that might be a waste. And especially if you have a very dominant product, if you're dominant in your category and you are synonymous with the non-branded term, then again, you may find that your organic rankings suffice and you are able to capture a lot of that demand without spending too much. All of this is to say, every brand is different. Testing is really important in this situation. So make sure that you do as much as you can to test these channels to make sure that you understand their performance as well as possible. Okay, let's talk a little bit about promo strength. As we've seen, a lot of the activity around promos is really about capturing demand that already exists. And so, of course, if you're capturing demand that already exists, it's important that your promo itself, the actual offer, is very strong. If a lot of your customers are expecting you to be on sale and the sale is very weak or non-existent, then you're not going to capture that demand. It's very, very likely that your customers are going to go to your competitors if they have better deals. And at that point, no amount of additional media budget is going to solve the problem. You have lost those customers thanks to not having a sufficient promo. So let the promo do the work, right? The winning formula really is about building that demand before the promotion, having a strong offer, and then maybe just nudging the customers at the very last minute. So use your own channels, put the word of the strength of that promotion out, and then sit back and you will reap the rewards of all of the demand that you managed to pre-build before the promotion happened. So media's job really becomes making sure that customers know that the offer is there. It is too late to start building demand or capture people who are still too early in their discovery. By that point, you need to have them much further down the funnel. They need to be ready to buy. Again, different brands have very, very different experiences here. So if you are a well-known household name, it's going to be much, much easier for you because people may have a lot of experience of you having had good, strong offers in past years. They will be expecting it. All you need to do is remind them that you exist. And that's a very, very easy job. Whereas if you're a growth brand, maybe customers don't have that level of experience of you putting on promos in the past. And so you have a bit more of a hill to climb during the promotion than otherwise. Okay, we can talk a little bit about how to use incrementality testing. So as I'm sure you're all aware, incrementality testing is one of the best ways to understand the impact of media, and that goes for during a sale or during a promo versus outside of a promo. Importantly, results can be very different. The way that media operates during a sale and outside of a sale is very different. And so you need to bear that in mind when you're planning your tests, because you might want to understand how media works during a sale, or you might want to understand how media works outside of a sale. So make sure you plan the timing of your test appropriately. Importantly, of course, there's very high stakes to anything that you're doing during a sale. So if you're running an incrementality test during a sale, then there is a higher opportunity cost potentially. If the media is very, very effective, then running a holdout during a high revenue moment just feels a bit risky. And given that there's a lot of extra scrutiny on brands during that time, it can be a lot more risky and needs to be planned with a lot of care, making sure that your holdout is not too big and so on and so forth. That said, the way that incrementality tests will work is broadly the same, really, as it would be to any other time of year, where in its simplest form, we would run a holdout in specific geographies, we would create a counterfactual for other geographies, and then you would compare the two after the test is finished to understand what the lift was. Okay, lastly, final section, let's talk about a framework for action. So I'm actually going to start after the promo, and then we're going to run through a full cycle of how we think that brands should act all the way through to a promotional moment. So let's say that you've just been through a big promo. Most important is that you take the opportunity to learn everything that you can about how media operated during that promotional moment. So you're collecting all of those learnings, all those lessons, and you can carry those forward into your next promo. Never ever waste one of these moments, right? There is so much work that can be done to make sure that you really understand what worked, what didn't. Did you spend too much? Did you not spend enough? Which channels worked, which didn't, and so on and so forth. So use your attribution, use your testing, all of the tools available to you to understand what impact you had. Then let's say we have a few more months before our next promo. So we're now in a kind of mid promo or inter promo period. Lean into your tools, MMM, MTA testing, to optimize your media into the best performing channels and build that demand. Remember that, especially if you are a brand that thrives during promos, where you know that customers are waiting in the wings, they're ready to buy, they might be in discovery, consideration, you name it, doesn't matter which bit of the funnel is. You are trying to get them closer and closer and closer to purchase, knowing that when the next promotion arrives, that's when you're going to reap all of that benefit. So make sure that you are focused on the right KPIs, getting customers to your site, doing that research and persuading them that you are the best option well in advance of the promotion actually beginning. Then, right before the promo, plan the budget, plan your measurement strategy, and make sure that those two things are optimized, not just to capture revenue, but also to capture all of the learnings that you possibly can. That way, you're really set up for success. Lastly, make sure that you plan an actual plan of action, a game plan for what to do in certain situations during the promo. The last thing that you want is to launch a promotion and then not be sure how you're going to react if you see competitors bidding against you, if you see higher than expected demand or lower than expected demand. And if you don't have a game plan, then it's going to be much, much harder to react in the moment and make sure that you are optimizing spend in intelligent ways that will set you up for success. So have a rule book or a playbook so that you know this is how we're going to respond when we see certain things happen. And then during the promo, monitor performance, use that playbook to your advantage, prioritize ideally spend reductions, strength to the greatest extent possible. Depending on what your goals are, if you have an efficiency goal, that is especially important. If you have a revenue goal and the media costs are less important, then by all means, optimize towards the total revenue as opposed to the efficiency of your spend. But just remember, always bear in mind that there will be a limit to what media can do during a promo. If you haven't seeded enough demand in advance, if you haven't got enough consumers ready to buy, then just increasing spend during a promotional moment is not going to get you where you want to be. Instead, you are likely to just be wasting some of those incremental dollars. It would be better to push those dollars, push that spend to later in the year and use it another time instead. So exercising a bit of restraint, understanding that the strength of the promotion and the amount of work that you've done to build demand before the promotion, those are going to be the critical pieces to success, as opposed to just ramping up spend at the last minute. That is everything that we have in terms of materials. I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes and just see if anyone has any questions in the chat. Please feel free to write in anything that you have, and I will do my best to respond. And if after a minute or two we don't have any questions, then I will go ahead and end the webinar. Okay, it doesn't look like we're going to get any questions in the chat, so I'll thank you all for coming and look forward to seeing you on the next session. Thanks all.